you got a brand new Switch or you want to get one soon, but you're not really a fan of the colors that it comes in. I mean, the main unit is really just in black right now, and the Joy-Cons have plenty of very bright, fun colors to choose from, but that might not be for you. Now, there are places that do offer custom paint jobs, but this can get really expensive. So if you're on a budget, what exactly can you do? Well, recently on Amazon, there's been a huge pop-up of these replacement shells that you can do yourself for way cheaper. But is it easy to do? That's what I'm gonna find out right now. I personally don't do a lot of actual opening up and modifications of my system, so if you're like me, how hard is this to actually do on your first try? So we're gonna start with actually switching out the back plate on the Switch itself, because believe it or not, this is actually the easier thing to do, because we're not doing anything with the front, we're not changing anything with the screen, we're only changing out the back. So let's see how this goes. I might even be stripping the screws a little bit. This one's easier. These ones are a lot easier. This is Nintendo likes using these Y-shaped screws a lot for a lot of their stuff, which is also why it's basically impossible to open these if you don't buy a specialty teardown kit. All right, we have a working Switch stand. Okay, so as I'm almost done screwing this thing back closed, I just realized I forgot something. I moved the kickstand over, which was good to do. I did not move over the game flap. So, back at it. Old kickstand, gone. Old back, gone. Let's put this back together again. All right, so after some trials and tribulations and one missing screw, we have switched out the back of the, well, Switch, and it actually looks pretty nice. I'm not a big fan of having a different logo on the back, but yeah, that was actually pretty easy, other than a few little mix-ups on my part. But, like I said, this is the easier thing to do. So now let's see how the Joy-Cons go over. So, we got the back off now. Here's why the Joy-Cons are more fun than the Switch. With the Switch, we were just only moving the back plate off, and that was it. Everything else was staying. With the Joy-Cons, though, if we want to change the front, back, the whole thing, we actually have to fully gut it and then refill all those insides into the new Joy-Con covers. Okay, so this is the inside of the Joy-Con. You can see right here, this little big thing on the bottom is actually the HD rumble, which is what we're going to remove next. Then we have to unplug a lot of this other stuff still, so let's do that. One thing we are going to do from putting it together, though, is that along with the new case covers, this also came with buttons we can change out. So instead of using the plain black ones that are on Joy-Cons, we're going to go for a more classic kind of Japanese Famicom style, where we've got the 4 colors. I just can't get these to frickin' plug back in. Guess what I didn't do? What's that? Put the front bumper in. I am not good at this. That was almost a third one gone. Okay, so after losing a couple screws and I think possibly putting a screw in the wrong place, I have put the controller back together, and actually, all the buttons and stuff feel fine. Okay, I definitely messed up on the trigger. Yeah, other than messing up the trigger, I actually almost did this right. So yeah, the trigger and the release button right here are messed up, so I'm probably gonna have to reopen this. I am also missing 2 of the screws that actually keep the back plate on, so the other 2 seem to be enough to keep it together, but yeah, not the best changing job on my part. So yeah, if you've never done stuff like this before, it is possible to do this correctly if you're careful. You just have to be more careful than me, and also, don't do this over a carpet, where you will lose any screw that falls down. here we have the finished Switch. I took care of the right Joy-Con as well, and then I did a few fixes to the left one that I had some issues with. Like I said, I messed up the lock button, which was really easy to do. I just had to turn the button sideways. And then the trigger wasn't actually my mistake. The molding on the replacement one was a little off, causing it to not have the right amount of pushback. So you'll see I'm actually still using the gray Joy-Con centerpiece, and I did that for the right one as well, just so they're matching. I also redid the buttons on this one. I made it so that they're matching when they're both sideways in Joy-Con form, because that just seems cool to me. I gotta say, this was very intimidating to start with, I mean, especially the Joy-Con, because you're basically gutting the whole thing, and if you've never done something like this before, there's that real fear that you're gonna, brick a Joy-Con, which is, you're out 50 bucks. But after having to reopen and do this one a couple of times and working on the right one, it's really not that bad. I mean, as long as you have a little bit of experience and a good tool set, this is something that you can actually pretty easily do, making it definitely worth the money. Now, as for the actual replacement parts itself, like I said earlier, I'm not a big fan of having this different logo on the back. I like having the colorful buttons though, and that really wasn't that hard to change out. Otherwise, I'm not a huge fan of the actual white it is. It's a little too creamy for me. I kind of wish it was more of a very pale stark white, which would be a good contrast with the parts of the Switch that are just going to be black no matter what, because you can't exactly change out the screen and such. But the really cool thing about this is because all these replacement parts come as just, a few bits of plastic on the side, this would be very easy to just pick up on your own and paint whatever color you want. I mean, anyone looking into doing an actual custom designed Switch, pick up one of these and paint them instead of actually changing the shells in your current Switch. That way you have the original parts for backup, but also the white makes it a lot easier to change up and customize if you want. So for 40 bucks, this thing is actually a pretty awesome investment. I mean, yeah, like I said earlier, there are professional paint jobs you can have done, but that's gonna cost you over 100 bucks, maybe even for just the Joy-Cons alone. So if you're on a budget, it's really not that hard to do. I mean, yes, it is a little intimidating at first, but once you actually start diving into it and get a little more confident, it's just not that big of a deal.